Recording. All right. Hey guys, Nishquick here, and welcome back to the EXP podcast, our first episode of 2024, and Happy New Year to everyone. And I have two guests today, one returning, and one who is joining in for the first time. So, welcome back Yggdrasil, and welcome for the first time Samuel Talks About Games, or we just call him Sammy. So, Sammy, you want to introduce yourself first, since this is your first time on the EXP podcast?
Yeah, so I'm Sammy. Sam talks about games, etc. I occasionally make videos on stuff that I find interesting. I like Nintendo. I like a wide variety of games. You know, I like Xenoblade, Zelda. Both of those we'll be talking about today.
Yes, Sammy is a big Zelda fan, a big Nintendo fan, and one of the biggest Switch 2 fans, even though it doesn't even exist yet. So we're definitely going to be talking about Switch 2 as well today. And yeah, Yggdrasil, you want to introduce yourself as well?
Actually, it does exist, and I'm going to prove it in today's discussion.
Yep.
But yeah, hey everyone, it's Yggdrasil, and I'm super glad to be back. It's been a while since I've been on the EXP podcast, so I'm happy to be back, especially for the first one of the year.
Yeah.
For those who don't know, I'm a big avid RPG fan, big avid Nintendo fan. Lots of love, especially for the Xenoblade series, and that's part of what we're going to be discussing today, so I'm happy to be here.
Yeah, and both Yggdrasil and Samuel's channels will be down in the descriptions below. Be sure to check them out, subscribe to them, and check out their videos on Nintendo, RPGs, and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, without further ado, let's get started. So the three big things we're talking about today are, of course, Nintendo Switch 2, Monolithsoft's future and big plans they have cooking. What is Monolithsoft planning? And sort of what the Zelda team is planning, because that's like our bread and butter, like our favorite kind of stuff. Like Xenoblade, Monolithsoft, Zelda, a lot of that overlaps, and then of course Switch 2. So I guess we can start off with, let's start off with Zelda, because I feel like that will be the quickest, because Monolithsoft and Switch 2 will kind of cross over. But there are rumors of Ocarina of Time being remade, and there's also rumors of other Zelda projects happening. And even though like we won't get the next big open world Zelda game in like in the near future, I think that for Switch 2, like a lot of people are saying, like there will usually be a Zelda thing either the first year or the second year, like the first full year of Switch 2. So what do you guys think about Zelda going into the new year?
So I have some reasoning for a big Zelda project like an Ocarina of Time remake to happen. So if there's not a new Zelda game to launch a system, they like to have a big Zelda project relatively close to the system launching to have those evergreen sales and just have something Zelda be relevant on there. And I don't think Wind Waker, Twilight Princess, that would not do the job. Those might even come before the Switch 2.
I think those will be like Switch 1 games to end off the Switch 1, if those still exist.
We might see them next month.
We'll see.
And, you know, there could be a new 2D Zelda from Grezzo. You know, that could be a big deal, but Ocarina of Time Remake's really the elephant in the room, since, you know, they're not going to do Breath of the Wild HD. They're kind of out of HD remasters. And
Breath of the Wild HD. Oh, man.
Yeah.
God.
Tears of the Kingdom remastered.
Oh, gosh.
I think maybe there's a chance of, like, Tears of the Kingdom and Breath of the Wild getting updates to get pushed up to 60 FPS, some little stuff like that. I would like that very much.
I hope those are free upgrades. I don't see them being free upgrades. They're probably going to be like $10 or something, but it would be so nice if I have like my cartridge of Tears of the Kingdom, I put it into the Switch 2 and it gets a free upgrade to 60 FPS or something.
Upscaling, yeah? I wonder if that could be a thing.
That would be so cool if that happens. Again, I don't see that happening because even Sony did that for like the first year and a half of PS5, and then once God of War Ragnarok came out, they're like, nah, we're not doing that anymore. And I'm like,
the problem is that leads to extra iteration, and it can also be taxing.
Yeah.
Plus sometimes programs, the way things are coded, simply just can't adapt to upscaling.
Yeah, because a lot of people... Yeah? Sorry, continue.
Sorry, I was going to say case in point, anytime anyone ever tries to upscale Tales of Symphonia to run at 60.
Oh my god, that's really sad. That one's really sad, because I remember, like, some outlets were trying to do that for the Switch version, and it was just like... You could see Lloyd just flailing all over the place like a rag doll. It was crazy.
It like tripled everyone's animations, essentially.
But
Metal Gear Solid can't handle 60 FPS either.
Yeah, that's another sad one. But for like with these games being upscaled, like I think Breath of the Wild, Tears of the Kingdom are prime examples. A lot of people are saying like, oh, Mario Odyssey getting 4K, Splatoon, all that, getting updates. The ones that really need it are Xenoblade 1 to 3. I think those games running at 60 FPS at like even a solid 1080p would be just mind-blowing. It would be amazing.
It's surreal to see that there's a growing movement that started not all too long ago for people crying for Xenoblade Chronicles 2 Definitive.
Yeah, it's interesting. Me and Sammy have talked about that too. Like, is Xenoblade 2 Definitive Edition coming? I don't see it coming for a very long time, but I think it eventually will. But
I think it could happen near the middle to the end of the Switch 2 life cycle. For example, if X was to happen this year, that would be 10 years or 9 years. You know,
Can you imagine at the end of Switch 2 we get Xenoblade Chronicles Trilogy? How there's the Metroid Prime Trilogy and it's just one exclusive
pack. Klaus Saga of Xenoblade.
Exactly.
Here's the thing. Monolithsoft, they're wizards. Because Xenoblade Chronicles 3, it's a technical marvel. Because it runs at 540p internally. And it struggles to keep a consistent frame rate. But they develop that upscaling technology to make it look good, and they can really benefit from newer hardware.
Yeah. I think we're slightly getting ahead of ourselves, but I want to jump back to this topic later on when we talk about Monolithsoft, most definitely. But
I'm sorry to cut you off. It's like that's like the problem right now discussing these three things. It's because
they
it's
really
just
overlap.
It's all intertwined. Exactly.
Yeah, we're gonna get a lot of overlaps, but when it comes to Ocarina of Time Remake, I want to focus on that. The thing about that is, like, a lot of us have wanted it so much, and I see it as almost, like, you know how fans almost will things into existence? It happened with Final Fantasy VII because everyone was like, oh, we want Final Fantasy VII to be remade, and then Nomura and Kitase were like, oh, everyone wants this, maybe we should do this, and then they're like, okay, let's do it, and they did it. And same with Persona 3, everyone was like, Persona 3 is the one that needs to be remade, it needs a definitive edition, and we're getting Reload, which is very good, but it's maybe not a full definitive edition, but it still was like the work of the fans. And Ocarina of Time, I find it kind of mind-blowing that now in 2024, like, what was that statistic? It was like the gap between Ocarina of Time now and the 3DS version is the same amount of time between the original and the 3DS version or something like that, right?
Yeah, so the gap between the original and the 3DS version is the same gap between the 3DS version and today. Actually, the 3DS version is slightly longer at this point by like a couple weeks.
That, first of all, that makes me feel very old, because I remember playing Ocarina of Time like a year or two before the 3DS version came out, and then I played the 3DS version, which I played the most. So like that is mostly Ocarina of Time to me. And I want to know what you guys think, like if this remake is happening, if us fans kind of will it into existence, what do you want to see from it, and like how do you want it to look and feel and all that?
First up, that's absolutely insane to me to think about, because I literally, I was just, I'm unpacking, I'm in a new place, I'm putting away all my cartridges, and I come across the Ocarina of Time 3D one in my 3DS cassette like case, and I'm just like, wow, this was like it's crazy. It's like it was a few years back, and then I think about it like DS era, and I'm just like, that was over a decade.
Yeah.
Like, way more than a decade.
Yep.
Yeah.
And
13 years.
Like, my
yeah,
goodness.
I cannot believe it was that long ago, and that was also like the same year Skyward Sword came out. I can't believe it's been that long.
Really though,
Yeah.
I know. But and I have to say this, and I know like purists would probably hate it. I would probably not want to see it appear in the same style. I would like to see the tale of Ocarina of Time told in like Zelda's modern styling.
Do you?
And
interesting.
That's not to say I don't want it in a Tears of the Kingdom sandbox, although I can fully imagine that Mr. Aonuma has plans for the next game to be Skybox-like.
Yeah.
But I mean, at the very least, imagine the modern stylings, like the style of Ocarina of Time, the style, I guess, with the assets and flexibility and some of the engines that Tears of the Kingdom employs. Obviously, not every engine's going to be the same if you're going to go a more traditional Zelda route. But I mean, just overall, things look nicer. Quality of life is there.
Modernization.
Exactly,
Yeah.
it's a better modernization, still emphasizing the core of Ocarina of Time. But just everything's a bit up to date, up to snuff. Because when I think of the word remake, I don't think of base game plus texture pack HD with smoother pixelation.
Yeah, I don't even think of Ocarina of Time 3D as a remake.
It's more of a remaster.
Yeah, like back when I first played it when I was a kid, I did kind of think of it as a remake because I didn't know what remakes or remasters were. But now, like looking into it, I'm like, this is more of a remaster compared to like what other games have done as a remake. Like, I think a really good example is something that me and Yggdrasil have played is Fire Emblem Echo Shadows of Valentia. That is a fantastic remake. Like,
yeah, that is the essence of remake, in my opinion.
Like, if they do something like that, but for a home console, like, revitalization of Ocarina of Time, that'll be great, because Shadows of Valentia not only, like, redid, like, the visuals, of course, because it's going from NES to 3DS, but it added new story scenarios, it added new music, it added just a bunch of quality of life features to make it, like, a really, like, unique kind of game that sets itself apart from the original Fire Emblem Gaiden. So for Ocarina of Time Remake, I don't want to see, like, you know how Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom, like, it's open world, non-linear, but I think the main thing about those games is, like, the weird things you can do with the environment and the interactions and stuff. I don't know if that will fit too well in Ocarina of Time.
I have a vision.
Yeah, what do you think?
So, I think... Alright, so with the next 3D Zelda, they're not going to go back to linear Zelda, but they're also not going to continue the Breath of the Wild, Tears of the Kingdom formula, I don't think. Because, like, the Zelda team prides themselves on innovation and doing something new with the next game. So I feel like a potential Ocarina of Time remake could be a test run of what that game could be like. Yeah, it's no stranger to, Tears of the Kingdom does have a lot of criticisms and a lot of things that doesn't do right. And I think the Zelda team's listening to that, and maybe they can format Ocarina of Time Remake in a way where it's like there's no loading screens, right? It keeps the essence of Ocarina of Time. It kind of feels like an open world game, but it does have a linear story.
Yeah. So when you're going from, like, Hyrule Field into, like, Kakariko Village or Gerudo Valley, it'll be like a seamless transition instead of loading into there. I like that idea.
Right, and it can feel like what a lot of us want modern Zelda to be like, because
Yeah.
I do think Ocarina of Time is probably one of the most open 3D Zeldas prior to Breath of the Wild.
Yes, yeah. It was one of the first, like, modern open world games in the modern sense, with, like, 3D visuals and a 3D environment. It was one of the first games to do that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I
think
yeah,
there's some strategy there too.
I
think-
yeah, I can see that happening.
I think also we have to take into account, and this is more or less me reading into Mr. Aonuma's words, his surprise at just how many people he feels like, oh, people really do just want like a return to the old style games. And, you know, it wasn't as apparent, obviously, in Breath of the Wild because it was its own original thing. But now we had the trend of Breath of the Wild plus Tears of the Kingdom just going about and being essentially near the same as Breath of the Wild. And then when we got there is now that we have this trend picking up of similar style, similar games. Aonuma is happy with the way it's moving forward. But now we have, it's like, okay, you know, you did something once originally, great. But then you had the successor be $70 and its majority plays the same, acts the same, feels the same vibes, just like a few different mechanics here and there, and a reiteration of the zones. And he seemed surprised that it's people really wanted to return to traditional Zelda. I'm just like, well, look at what people were endeared to with the original Zelda. You had a much more defined story. I'm sorry, a lot of those older games, in my opinion, had much more likable characters there too. You know, in my opinion, of course. I know people are the Pura fans are going to be thirsty. I myself am an avid Paya enjoyer.
Yeah.
Paya enjoyer. But yeah, no, I mean, we think of the story, we think of the way dungeons were, we think of the way, because of how those dungeons were, we think of the puzzles, the way that we had to go and just things were integrated in the world. We knew what to expect when going in a dungeon. And at the same time, like, it's just the mechanics of it just played so beautifully. The puzzles were adapted to it.
The dungeons were the big sticking point for me with Tears of the Kingdom. Like,
here's the thing.
Yeah.
There's potential there. Like, the Lightning Temple. They were almost there.
Yeah.
Lightning Temple, exactly. That is my favorite temple out of the four of them. It really had something going for it. And I did appreciate using Tears of the Kingdom's tools for those puzzles, especially, the ability that lets you go above.
Oh, ascend.
Ascend,
yes. Yeah. Literally termed ascend. But at the same time, you know, that ascend also would otherwise, you know, completely devalue old school dungeons.
Yeah. I want to ask you guys something. If Ocarina of Time gets a remake, do you think the dungeons will change? Because the dungeons in Ocarina of Time are very iconic. Like, you got Forest Temple, Water Temple, Spirit Temple, all that stuff, right? Do you think that they would drastically change in a remake? Because I would be okay with them changing it, unless they don't make them like Breath of the Wild, Tears of the Kingdom, non-linear style. I want them to have structure, I want them to have a beginning and an end, I want them to have the small keys and stuff. But if there are changes to them, I'm open to seeing what they do. So what do you guys think about that?
So I subsequently want and don't want them to change.
Yeah.
I want them to change because I want them to find a way, like, if they do make Ocarina of Time a little more like modern Zelda, I want them to like experiment with how to do traditional dungeons in a modern Zelda game.
Yeah.
But I also don't want them to mess it up. Also, Nintendo remakes are very one-to-one. They usually don't change much, but Ocarina of Time remake, this would be probably their biggest remake that they've ever done.
What are other examples of their remakes? There's Link's Awakening, there's Thousand Year Door, that's questionable if it's a remake or not. What else have they done as a remake recently?
Mario RPG, but that was
Mario
Super
RPG.
Remake.
That was very faithful. That was a very faithful remake.
Yeah,
it was absolutely faithful,
exactly.
but there were some mechanical changes. Obviously, there's the numbers changes to make make space essentially for accounting for AoEs and whatnot, as well as the super moves.
I think I personally think the best examples of remakes that Nintendo has been a part of, and this is not like traditional Nintendo, but still published by them, is the Fire Emblem remakes, like Shadow Dragon, New Mystery, and Shadows of Valentia. I think if Ocarina of Time does something similar to those, in the sense that it keeps the essence of the game, but like elevates it to a modern level, like Shadows of Valentia felt almost like it still felt like Gaiden, but it was like Gaiden in the era of Awakening and Fates, you know? So I want Ocarina of Time to be Ocarina of Time, keep that identity, but have it in the same like era of Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom. So one more thing I want to talk about with Ocarina of Time, or one more thing I want to ask you guys, is what is your biggest, like, if this happens, what is your biggest wish for this game? And I'll go first about this, because I have this kind of really cool idea, is I want them to add more story scenarios. I want them to, one, add voice acting. That would be amazing. Ocarina of Time with voice acting would be absolutely insane. I would be so happy about that. I want them to add new story scenarios and add side quests. So if you go to Kakariko Village, maybe there's more side quests because the town is bigger, there are more people there. Maybe if you go to like Lake Hylia, there's more people in Lake Hylia than just the guy in the laboratory, the scientist. And maybe just make Hyrule Field more bustling, have more things to do in there, have more side quests. But in terms of story, I want them to expand the story a bit more, just make it a little more like engaging, sort of like what Shadows of Valentia did. Maybe not add new characters, because that's what also echoes Shadows of Valentia did. I don't know if they should add new characters, but maybe add new scenarios with like Saria, maybe have more like events where you hang out with Saria and Darunia and Ruto as a kid, versus like maybe more events where you go on quests with Sheik to expand like the lore and like the world of Hyrule that has like changed in the past 7 years. And I think this is the craziest, biggest long shot thing, and this is like almost like 100% no, they're not going to do this, because they, in terms of like continuity and stuff, I don't see this happening. But you know how in Twilight Princess it's almost kind of confirmed that the hero shade is the hero of time, right?
Absolutely.
I feel like, what if there is like an epilogue that you do way far into the future, at the very end of the game, where you like play as an older Link, as like a soldier of Hyrule, and you die in the Lost Woods and you become the hero shade. That would be like a super emotional like thing that they do for Ocarina of Time as a remake. But I don't see them doing that, because from what we've seen in Tears of the Kingdom, the continuity stuff is not their priority, but that is just like a personal, like, this is my favorite game of all time. If they do this, then it would like mean the world to me. So for you guys, what is your biggest wish for an Ocarina of Time remake?
Okay, I have something realistic, and I have something that'll never happen, but it would be very cool. So my realistic thing is, I would like to see the Light Temple that was probably cut out of the game.
Like a transition between child and adulthood.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then, maybe when you open that door, you have to go through that temple, and at the end of it, you get the Master Sword and meet the sages and all that.
And then Ganondorf has his moment, And
I would also like to see different little mini dungeons dotted around the environment. Bigger than shrines. So
kind of like Ice Cavern and Bottom of the Well, but more of them.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that's how I think shrines should be in the next Zelda game. I think there should be much less of them, but distinctly themed, like, bottom of the well, nice cavern. And I'd like to see that be a test run in this game.
Interesting.
And my completely out there, never gonna happen wish would be when you defeat Ganondorf, you have to ride Epona through the Lost Woods, and it transitions right into Majora's Mask. The same game.
There you go.
Yeah.
That would be so cool. Yeah.
One big game.
Yeah. Oh my god, that would be amazing. But yeah, if they're doing an Ocarina of Time remake, then it's gonna be like another Operation Moonfall thing again, where they're begged and pleaded to do Majora's Mask remake. So we'll see what happens. But Yggdrasil, what is your biggest wish for this?
First off, it's also a big grain of salt because, when, especially in modern day, fans hear the word remake, the first thing that people do is they get their expectations up with things that they can expect and ultimately be upset or disappointed with when it's not what they started dreaming of in their head.
Yeah, that's already happening with Persona 3 before the game is even released.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
But as you were already saying, like, how with dungeons, like, for example, will they be modernized? Will they be changed? And I think that partly will depend on how much of the mechanics of the game baseline they plan to change, because if they adjust the tools that you work with, ultimately they have to change the puzzles that you employ the tools in.
Yeah.
But as for things I would perhaps like to see, I completely agree with you. The overworld needs a lot of love. A lot of the love in the traditional Zelda games lie within the dungeons. They lie within the towns, but some of the towns, but the overworld tends to suffer. And one of the things we're blessed with in modern day is we can account for towns not being these mishmash of background PNGs with a few NPCs sprinkled, and we can
no Final Fantasy VII OGs, none of that, please.
Exactly. Nowadays we can actually afford, or not afford, of course, but we can employ a full town with lots of bustling characters. Obviously, bring everyone back, but there's no reason to deny that new characters and new scenarios can exist in Ocarina of Time, and I would enjoy seeing that too. I'd also enjoy seeing a updated, remastered orchestra. I know a lot of people might be a little upset about that.
I would welcome that, actually, and
I would love it.
I
Gerudo Valley.
Oh my god.
A modernized Gerudo Valley.
That would be great. Ocarina of Time is not only my favorite video game of all time, it's also one of my favorite OSTs. And if they orchestrate that, then it'll give a whole new feeling and vibe to the game. So yeah.
Exactly. And then who's to say that we can't expand the world of Ocarina of Time, again, as you're saying with Majora's Mask, based on other titles that have since released? Can you imagine finding, let's say, for example, they do decide to say, you know what, screw it, we'll go with the timeline just a little bit. What are the adjacent games in the timeline? Can we leave little hints and nods there? Can we pepper the overworld with allusions to
a statue.
Titles? They seem to, for example, be bringing Fi forward in a lot of some of these games, especially Tears of the Kingdom. Maybe just toss in the sound effect.
Fi would be perfect to have in Ocarina of Time because of how much the Master Sword plays a role in the story of that game.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it would just honestly, it'd just be welcome to see the Triforce again.
I missed it in Tears of the Kingdom.
Two games in a row without it.
I really thought it would come back in Tears of the Kingdom somehow, but yeah.
Yeah.
What if they're the secret stones and they've been shattered? And I don't know. That was my initial thought, and that's not clearly the case. But I mostly just I have to agree with you that those are what I would enjoy seeing. That, as well as just don't be HD texture pack, be its own special thing.
Yeah.
Celebrate the game.
Yeah.
Give it the glow up every kid remembers the game looked like, how it looked like.
Be faithful to it, because the thing is, like, I was telling one of my friends this the other day, like, I was hanging out with him and he brought up Ocarina of Time Remake, and I told him, like, this is my favorite video game of all time. I'll be very happy if it gets a remake, but I'll also be looking at it with a giant magnifying glass dissecting everything. If they screw something up, I will be like, I'll have something to say about it. So I don't know, then, like, yeah.
And then what you're saying right there, faith, being faithful to it. One man's faith is another's sacrilege. You know, you don't want to have a scenario where, again, it's like, oh, it's not completely the same. You can't call it a faithful remake because it's just not 100% up to snuff. Some people, that's all they really want, you know, that they really do just want the game to look and play almost exactly the same, just with like some little like texture glow up, and they're perfectly happy. But you know, it was revolutionary for Ocarina of Time and Majora's Mask in the DS era, the way they employed aiming.
Yeah, the gyroscope.
Yeah, gyro aiming was really good.
Yeah, like, simple feature, but revolutionary to experience the gameplay. A lot less grievance there. And even if we do just have that sort of base texture HD thing, I would at least hope for accommodations similar to the gyroscope for modern day, using modern tools.
Dual analog controls as well. That would be nice, because Ocarina of Time has actually never had dual analog.
Yeah, like
just
when I'm
like how
on Nintendo Switch Online, it's the right stick to select items and stuff.
Same with like, Prime Remastered last year. Can't believe I'm saying last year, but Prime Remastered was the first time Metroid Prime had dual analog. So hopefully a lot of what we're talking about and predicting comes to fruition. Ocarina of Time Remake isn't even confirmed. I think it is a big possibility, but I'm also not holding my breath for it, because I don't want to hype myself so much and then be disappointed when nothing releases. Because this is also something like, this is what I want to say to close out this topic, because I want to move on to the Monolithsoft topic soon as well. But I feel like what I said before, like, we are willing this into existence. I really feel that, because outside of that and outside some small comments made by Aonuma, there's not much substantial evidence to this. But like I said with Final Fantasy VII Remake, Fire Emblem Echo, Shadows of Valentia, and Persona 3 Reload, a lot of remakes like this have been willed into existence by fans. Even Resident Evil 4, because they originally didn't want to do it, and they were like, oh, fans want it, maybe we should do it. And then they did, and it was great. So I think... Yeah?
Sorry, can I put in 2 more cents after you?
Yeah, what's up? No, that's basically all I wanted to say.
Okay. No, I was going to just add on to that. I truly think that, again, we are sort of willing it into existence. If I had to be extremely realistic about it, I would not expect a major title like that to be announced. Maybe announced at the tail end of this year, but certainly not released this year. Instead, what I would have to expect is A Link to the Past HD, or some
possibly,
or a glow up like how they did with Link's Awakening.
I think
I don't truly expect. Yeah. But I don't truly expect a large mainline entry. I would be absolutely surprised, because, of course, you know, and again, leading into future discussions, but Switch 2 dev kits have been out for almost a year now, as far as we know, since summer of last year. And I'm sure even before that, internally, they've been working on this. Tears of the Kingdom was probably gold over a year ago internally, but they've been testing it and testing it and testing it. The way these large companies work is they have different teams. They branch into different sections. There's always someone working on something new. So I have no doubt, if I had to put my own expectations, there are at least 2 separate Zelda titles being worked on right now. One of them is a smaller title. One of them is the workup for the next large title, which we will not hear about until, if we're lucky, the tail end of this year. Maybe, if I was being absolutely generous, the tail end of Q3 of this year.
Yeah, I guess we'll see. I can totally see something like Oracle remakes happening from Grezzo or something, but
I think it is possible that Grezzo could be handed the reins for a new 2D Zelda, similar to how Mercury Steam was handed the reins for Metroid Dread after they Samus Returns, and that did very well. But it's probably more likely that they do another remake instead of a new 2D Zelda.
Yeah.
Like Link to the Past or Oracle of Ages.
Yeah. I guess we'll see how that turns out. Hopefully, whatever the Zelda team is cooking, I hope it's good. I think it will be good because Zelda team is like a surefire like team which always does great. Speaking of teams that always do great within Nintendo, this is like the main topic I want to talk to you guys about and pick your brains on, because Monolithsoft is slowly becoming, if not my favorite, one of my favorite development teams in the entire gaming industry. And they are a blessing to Nintendo. They've not only done all of the Xenoblade games, but they have done work on the 2 Zelda games. They've also done work on Skyward Sword on the Wii, and then they've done work on Splatoon 2 and 3 on Switch, and Animal Crossing New Horizons. So they're always busy with something. But the thing is, since the start of, like, let's see, 2018, we heard a lot about like Monolithsoft being still like a relatively smaller company. This is before even Animal Crossing and Splatoon 3 came out, and of course before Xenoblade 3 Future Redeemed, and then Tears of the Kingdom. But they've grown exponentially since then. They've really grown as a development team in terms of like their developers that they've hired, the resources that they have. They're just more, they can really take up a lot more of bigger, larger scale tasks now. So I've talked to you guys on separate occasions both about this, and we're all both pretty big Xenoblade and like Monolithsoft fans. So there are many things that I can see happening with this studio. First of all, of course, actually there's like 4 areas I can see going next, because I've also talked about this with other friends. One is the elusive, mysterious new IP. The other is Xenoblade Chronicles X coming back in some definitive edition, maybe a sequel way into the future. Another is Xenoblade Chronicles 4, or whatever that is, whatever the next mainline Xenoblade game is. And then one thing I want to throw out is Xenosaga, because Xenosaga will probably be a Bandai Namco thing. I also have a video on that, which everyone watching this far in should definitely check out. But I also want to ask you guys, will Monolithsoft be involved in Xenosaga in some way, shape, or form? So those 4 things, we can talk about that now. So I'll let you guys have it. What do you think Monolithsoft is cooking? Because they're definitely like hard at work with something.
I think if I'm placing a bet down, Xenoblade Chronicles X, it has to come soon. We're done with the Klaus saga. That's behind us. Nothing's stopping them. They need to give that a definitive edition. It's stuck on the Wii U. It's sold less than 1 million. And it's Nintendo's first open world game. So I think they should really do something with that.
I think it's a more important thing to port over than Twilight Princess and Wind Waker, because like Xenoblade Chronicles X is stuck, whereas like, I mean, Twilight Princess and Wind Waker are sort of stuck, but they also were on 3 different, they were playable on 3 different Nintendo systems, almost. Yeah, basically 3 different Nintendo systems, where Xenoblade Chronicles X is stuck on a dead platform. So yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah, and from what I know, there's a lot of stuff that needs to be done to it. Like, obviously, the multiplayer can be brought back. There's also some quality of life changes it could have. You know, I would really love to play the game. So I'm hoping that this year, as maybe one of the, either a cross-gen game or one of the final Switch games to come out. It could potentially get announced next month. Who knows?
Oh my god, if it's announced next month, I will be so happy. And the
Xenosaga.
Yeah. What about Xenosaga?
Xenosaga HD. Just to have my thoughts on that. I think that handled by Bandai.
Yeah. My like ideal hope is Xenosaga is done by Bandai Namco, but like Takahashi's there as a consultant to make sure things go smoothly. But one thing I wanted to say real quick is I brought up the whole like Monolithsoft growing exponentially for a reason, because I remember, I don't know if you remember this, Yggdrasil, but after the release of Torna the Golden Country, there was a interview with Takahashi, and he was like, oh, I want to bring over Xenoblade X on the Switch, but it's a money issue. It's a time, resources, and money issue because it's going to be a very expensive product. And a lot of people have been saying like, oh, just make it a HD upscale, it'll be easy. And it's not like an easy HD upscale like, for example, like Donkey Kong Tropical Freeze or Mario 3D World. It's not that easy because Xenoblade X was made specifically for the Wii U with many updates that you had to put in to like, or download to like make it run smoothly, and transitioning that, which was like made specifically for that Wii U disc, transitioning that over to a Switch cartridge is not as easy as other games in the Wii U library. But I think with the way Monolithsoft has grown, I think they can really put in the time, resources, and money to make it work out well. So yeah,
so it's absolutely the case. You're absolutely right. The largest hurdle that they have to face is the implementation of FrontierNet. You know, everything that was situated on your Wii U gamepad
stuff.
Which was it's central to the gameplay. It's absolutely central. It's your teleports. It's your probe installations. It's the map out. It shows you the objectives to open up the map, open up FrontierNet, get things going. Your overworld objectives. It has everything. So it's a very hard implementation to physically overcome because it's just so rooted into many of the aspects that the game employs for progression. And so first off, I liked your intro saying Monolithsoft was cooking. I feel like maybe someone enjoyed watching my latest video, which I'm totally plugging in at this point.
Which will also be in the description of this video.
Which quite literally is called Monolithsoft is Cooking, because that was my most recent video. In about 4 or 5 minutes, or in under 10 minutes, I covered pretty much a lot of my thoughts and understandings as to what's really going on with both Monolithsoft this upcoming year, as well as with the Switch 2 rumors. So I had a good bit of prep work before getting on in here, I gotta say. But Monolithsoft, I think the last time we were informed of their employees was January of last year, where they're somewhere around the 260 mark. And for those who don't know, that's phenomenal. That's phenomenal. Yeah. For example, despite having over 100 employees for Xenoblade Chronicles 2, the vast majority of those employees were shifted over into Breath of the Wild and also support
Xenoblade 2 had like a 50 dev team, right?
I believe 60. I believe
it was
60.
Really small, and then like Torna had more, I think, because I'm not entirely sure. Like, don't quote me on that, but I remember Xenoblade 2, just to push it out as a launch title for the Switch, not a launch title, but like a launch year title. They really had to like push back on developers because Breath of the Wild, Splatoon 2, Animal Crossing, Xenoblade Definitive Edition, and pre-production of Xenoblade 3 were all happening at once. It was kind of crazy. Yeah.
No, and I think also looking at what they were able to do during the Switch generation when they were a little bit smaller than they are now. They were able to have almost yearly releases. They had Xenoblade 2 in 2017. They had Torna in 2018. 2019 they skipped, but they had Definitive Edition in 2020. 2021 they skipped, but they had Xenoblade 3 in 2022 and Future Redeemed last year. They only skipped 2 years during the Switch generation.
You know something? Is there was a leak about Xenoblade 3 in 2021, and that leak was 99% correct. Basically, it said like it's going to combine the worlds of 1 and 2. There will be returning characters. It'll, like, there was a lot that it got right, basically. and I don't know how this person found out. It was basically a leak from Imran Khan. I don't know if you guys remember it. It was very uncannily spot on.
Yeah.
The only thing that it got wrong, which I firmly believe to have been true, was that it was originally supposed to come out in holiday of 2021. So that's like the only game I can think of right now that has been delayed by them, which was Xenoblade 3, which is supposed to come out in 2021, but delayed to September 2022 and then pushed forward to July 2022. So that just shows you how diligent Monolithsoft is with their games. So like Yggdrasil, you being the only person here who has completed X, what do you think X is going to be like on the Switch? Do you think it's coming? Do you think it's coming this year? That is the main question. Like, do you think it's coming this year, or are they waiting next year for the 10-year anniversary?
It is my absolute complete dream to see Xenoblade Chronicles X on the Switch 2. I would absolutely be over the moon if it was a launch title, especially with the rumors of upgraded DLSS, ray tracing, 1080p baseline, you know, all of these rumors that we've been hearing over the last few months. To think about them with employed in Xenoblade Chronicles X would be absolutely fantastic. I fully expect Xenoblade Chronicles X Definitive will be a thing in the Switch 2, and the way that things are going along with Xenosaga's rumors and the seemingly like glaring attention that Xenosaga has been picking up over the years, especially as Xenoblade Chronicles itself has gotten more popular and people are branching out into Saga and Gears, playing through and understanding those games. I can fully see both on board. I don't know which one would be the priority. Future Redeemed seems to have hinted a little bit more towards Xenosaga, but there are those allusions to X as well. So it's a tough say. It really is. Now then, and another interesting point. We're talking about the employees and the scaling of those of that team. I just looked it up. You were right. It was about 40 to 50 people. I believe that worked on Xenoblade Chronicles 2 at the time. But that back then, they had 140 staff members. I believe so. And how many of those were shifted over to other titles?
Wow.
And now in January, as of January 2023, last year, so it could have shifted further.
Is it possible that some of those team members were working on Definitive Edition?
Yes, I definitely think so, because I think from what we have heard is Takahashi's like main Xenoblade team was working on Definitive Edition instead of them working on Xenoblade 2, which is crazy. Yeah, and Xenoblade 2 still turned out like very well. So that I think that was mostly just to get Xenoblade 2 out as a 2017 game, because other people were working on Breath of the Wild. So yeah.
It barely made it into 2017.
Yeah.
But it's just crazy it's still absolutely crazy to think about. It's like that game was made by 40 to 50, and then now look at now, like as of last year, there's 260 some employees, and a lot of people seem to forget that there's now multiple teams that work within Monolithsoft. There's some 3 different teams, I believe. There's the main team headed by Mr. Takahashi himself, and funnily enough, that is now 140 people strong, to my knowledge.
Wow.
Team
so
2,
like more than doubled.
They've more than doubled their primary team.
Wow.
Absolutely. They have as many they have as much resources as their full employment listing back from Xenoblade Chronicles 2 for their main lines now. And it's incredible to think about, because you have to come back and think again how monumental design Xenoblade Chronicles 3 is, especially like some people I know was it Zephia on Twitter, who's like, look at how they point out, for example, like clipping and whatnot, or assets that aren't finished, but it's like that's someone that's like specializing in scrutinizing like those details, but look at how everything else functions. Look at the comparison in the quality of Xenoblade 2's launch versus Xenoblade 3's launch, and it's only going to be getting better with each title moved forward because Nintendo is recognizing just how fantastic an asset Monolithsoft is proving. And so that's Team 1. Team 2 is the team that goes to assist. So they're the team that assists with the technicalities of Breath of the Wild, of Tears of the Kingdom, Splatoon. I think they also had a big hand to play specifically with Definitive Edition for Xenoblade Chronicles. And then there's also the Monolithsoft Kyoto team, which I think it's like they go back and forth, but they also tend to help more on secondary titles. The whole point in case is they have such a phenomenal track record over these last few years, and now they have the numbers to back it up. I wouldn't be surprised, and I know the argument is Xenoblade X or Xenosaga, especially if Xenosaga is just Bandai, but there's no reason to assume that there's no reason to go against the idea that Monolithsoft could simply have multiple hands in multiple projects at this point, and you know, both of those ideas could be in simultaneous production. Maybe obviously Monolithsoft having a bigger hand in Xenoblade X as compared to again consultancy with Xenosaga.
Not to mention the new IP that's probably nearly done. It's been in development for a while.
Yeah. Do you guys think
assuming
that
it's still here.
Do you think it still exists? Because a few of my friends are kind of convinced that it doesn't exist, and what that was just kind of like promotional hype to get devs on board to work on Tears of the Kingdom, which my copium is saying no. I want that new IP to be real because it looks awesome, it looks cool, it looks like something so unique and different, because it actually, like, it reminds me of Metaphor Fantasio, because like
I was just gonna say that.
Yeah, because you know how Atlas is doing like modern tales about like Persona, SMT, which take place in the modern day, and now they're going completely different and doing a high fantasy game with Metaphor Fantasio. That's sort of what Xenoblade is, because Xenoblade is like a mix of sci-fi fantasy. But then if they do something, if Monolithsoft does this new IP, which we've seen the pictures of, if it still exists, it'll be like its first foray into high fantasy. Because
true fantasy, exactly.
Yeah, Gears and Saga weren't even like that. Gears was slightly fantasy, but it was more like Final Fantasy kind of fantasy. It was like more like a FF7 kind of vibe. And then Saga was entirely science fiction. And then Xenoblade is a nice blend of fantasy and science fiction together. But if they go in this direction, if it's completely high fantasy, and I feel like they can make this IP sort of like Nintendo's version of Final Fantasy XIV and bring in a lot of multiplayer elements from X, modernize them, and make it its own kind of like MMO, single player MMO, multiplayer MMO, just have that kind of unique take on that franchise, because that's sort of what Xenoblade Combat already is. And if whatever comes after the Cloud Saga is very different in its gameplay and combat and story, at least this new IP can retain some of that MMO combat and gameplay aspects. Especially also if they're doing an X2, if X2 is in the works, that will also retain a lot of the multiplayer MMO stuff as well. So who knows, like, there's a lot of stuff up in the air with Monolithsoft, but I'm very confident in what they can do. And
so
yeah,
you're absolutely right in that it is engrossed in MMO feel, the Xenoblade series, like Xenoblade 1, you know, pure timers, it's classic MMO combat.
Even the side quests.
And even the
In
side
Xenoblade
quest,
1 especially, yeah.
it's just old World of Warcraft side quest gathering and killing. That's all it is.
Yeah.
And talk to NPC here and there. And I've gone on record also to say that Xenoblade Chronicles 3, it feels like you're leading your own mini raid team, especially the fact that you can control everyone and you can equip them with the skills that you want. And then I truly think there is a brand new IP going on as well. It is that same old IP that was thrown out years and years ago with that high fantasy. But I have reason to expect that there is a new IP working on, and that's again leading back into employees. Monolithsoft is in a continuous hiring spree, which is expected because if you look at overall the state of gaming, we're in a technical drought for competent employees, and not just competent employees, but competent employees that are going to stay with a company, not experience burnout and move into other sectors, especially as larger corporations just churn them out. Like, I don't know if you guys are follow up on gaming news as a whole, but for example, Embracer Group and other such large
lots of layoffs
conglomerations just churning out people with really like phenomenal talent, phenomenal potential, and instead they just give up and they move on to other sectors. But Monolithsoft seems to hold on quite well to its employees, and it also trains them really well. For example, there's multiple tech demos every month that Monolithsoft likes to share, or even they went on and they gave a speech. They gave their own tech demo just last month to university students, I believe, in Japan. So they're getting their footwork in, and they're also continuously hiring as well. In December of last year, they put in, I believe, some 20 open positions, including people who are experienced with Unreal Engine 4, Unreal Engine 5, experience working on AAA productions, as well as new openings for environmental designers and cinematic animations.
Yeah, the big thing was like experience in AAA game development. So they want like people who have worked on like, I don't know, like Monster Hunter World or like the Resident Evil series. They want like Capcom people, they want Square Enix people, they want like people who have worked on really big like games in the Japanese sphere. And they also say like we want experience with Unreal Engine 4 and 5. That was something else I saw on like the designers' job applications. And
that's very exciting.
Yeah, especially with Switch 2, which we'll be talking about in a bit. That is very good to hear with Monolithsoft, because next to the main like ep.20 Zelda team, they are the most technically masterful and technically talented Nintendo team. Whatever they touch is smooth and just very well done and polished. Like Sammy, you were saying earlier, like Xenoblade 3 is like a technical achievement and even has like some stutters and frame drops, but like compare freaking Xenoblade 3 to like
Scarlet and Violet.
Exactly, like compared to a Pokemon game. Like
it came on the same year.
Yeah.
In the same year on the same console, and then it's like massive, the best, the most renowned title, the most renowned corporation, like save Mario.
Yeah,
in terms of gaming.
I really want, I just kind of really want a Pokemon game and like a Monolithsoft game to come out on the Switch 2 at the same time, just to see what happens in terms of
I remember when Scarlet and Violet launched, there was this meme. It was like a screenshot of Xenoblade 3 and a screenshot of Scarlet and Violet. It was like, guess which is the IP that sells 30 million consistently,
exactly.
Which is the IP that sells like 2 to 3 million.
Yeah,
exactly.
It's really sad, but yeah, like whatever Monolithsoft touches turns to gold, and I'm very excited to see what they do. And like before we move on to Switch 2 stuff, there's a few things I want to say. First of all, in terms of like we talked a bit about Xenosaga, I definitely see Xenosaga happening. Like if we get something this year, I'm not banking on any Xeno thing immediately happening this year, but if we do get something this year, I think it could either be the new IP or a remaster. So the remaster could either be Saga from Bamco or X from Monolithsoft, or the new IP. So like Saga is a most likely happening thing, I think, because of like what we saw on Future Redeemed, and I have a video on that as well. But one thing I want to say is I personally don't see Xenogears Remake happening, and that's very sad. I want it to happen. I actually want it more than a Xenosaga remaster, remake, whatever. Especially after like seeing, I will be playing it, but like Sammy, you played Star Ocean 2 Remake, and after seeing the success of that, I'm like, Square Enix, please remember that Xenogears exists. Remember that you own that IP, and remember that you can actually do something with it. Yeah,
they constantly like tease the IP, but they never do anything with it.
Yeah, like they had it in
collaboration.
Yeah, they had it in Theater Rhythm and some other stuff. Yeah, like Theater Rhythm had Xenogears music, and some other like thing had Xenogears music. And they've been like posting Xenogears music on like their Twitter or their website and stuff. And I think they should really do it. And I think in terms of consultation from Takahashi, that needs to be the one where they're like, hey, you need to like come into the Square Enix offices and like see what we're doing with this, because this is your thing. I mean, they're not gonna do it like that. It's more gonna be like Takahashi will be like, hey, you're touching my baby. This is my original thing. Don't mess around with it. So I really hope if they do Gears, then they do it well. But like my faith in Xenogears Remake happening is not as high as something as like Saga or Xenoblade X. I will say that.
No, it's not. I personally think that Xenoblade Chronicles 3, you know, we always know the illusions with 3 and Gears. Especially, you know, ever since 3 was released, we already knew there's clear cut inspirations and allusions to
even
the story
in 1 and
of
2.
Gears.
Like most of the base games are retellings of his episode 5 of Xenogears.
Exactly. So, you know, I don't want to say that was his closure. I'm absolutely sure he would love to eventually finish like his legacy there. But it's I know it's
I think in terms of his
quite a lot to think of.
Yeah, I think in terms of his perfect works, I think with Future Redeemed everything is closed up, because Xenoblade is like its own 6-part saga. I think it's closed up with Future Redeemed, but I do want Gears to see the light of day again, and the big thing is, like, it needs to be a remake, because if they do the remake, they need to fix up the Disc 2 and everything. And I would really
they need to fix up a lot in Gears.
Yeah.
Like and I've only played Gears for 2 hours. They need to fix up a lot.
Yeah, exactly. So it desperately needs that remake treatment. But who knows? I guess we'll see how that goes. One more thing I want to ask you guys real quick is Xenoblade Chronicles 4, are we seeing that in the near future? I don't, like, of course, probably not, because Future Redeemed just happened, but, like, where do you think the Klaus... No, let me rephrase that, because it's not the Klaus Saga anymore. Where do you see Xenoblade going after this, in terms of the series direction after Future Redeemed?
It's still going to be Xenoblade, but it's going to be distinct from Chronicles. I don't think there's going to be very many references or anything. It's going to be a new cast, new world, new kind of thing, and it's going to be called Xenoblade something, you know, like you've been theorizing. It's still going to have the Xenoblade name because Xenoblade's very successful for a JRPG series.
It needs that brand recognition.
Yeah.
My theory is Xenoblade Saga, because if they want to like tie in Xenosaga elements to it, they could call it Xenoblade Saga.
And I think
I feel like
potentially come out in like 2 to 3 years, maybe.
Yeah.
Sorry to cut you off there. I feel like Saga is the way forward, just because of the purposeful like tease of the end of Future Redeemed with clear-cut hints as to what could lie in store, and that just alludes to like 80% Saga, 20% X. But I mean, it's a tough call. I would have to say the next mainline title, the earliest we would see it, if I had to again be like pretty on about it, mid 2025 would be the absolute earliest. And I only say that because Monolithsoft, again, proven record. They're clearly working on multiple projects at once. They could work now on their mainline projects as well as support other Nintendo-based projects as well, and still like have the luxury of being one of the only companies in gaming history to be able to say that they were able to push a game ahead of its initial release window.
Yeah, like no other like AAA development studio has ever done that. I think people should really like take that into account. Like when Xenoblade 3 was pushed forward, like when was the last time a video game had that ever happen? That's like
it's always
exceedingly rare. It's exceedingly rare.
Like Microsoft, they promise that all the games are coming this year, and they don't.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, but I think especially with powerful hardware, which is like a massive, like we'll be talking about that very soon, which is going to be a very big jump from Switch 1 to Switch 2. I think this like era from Monolithsoft is going to be very prolific and very good. I think us fans are going to be having a lot of fun with their games. So I think that leads us into the final topic. I wanted to save this for the end because it's the hottest topic of them all. And like, let's talk about Switch 2.
There we go.
Like a lot of this podcast has been speculative and speculation. It's not usually the content I usually make on the channel, but even with Switch 2, I hardly talk about Switch 2 because I usually stray away from rumors, leaks, speculation, all that. But I thought to kick off the year and the first EXP podcast, like since Switch 2 is a hot topic, it's most likely coming this year. It's something we're all excited for. Let's just open the floodgates and talk about it. There's a lot of leaks and rumors and leaked specs and this and that or whatever is happening. It's a very like it's a weird time for Nintendo fans because there's a lot of fake news, speculative news, gray area stuff happening, but there's also like a lot of things which we can be like, hey, that looks like it is legitimately going to happen. So I think all three of us are in agreement here that it's coming this year, right? Because
absolutely,
yeah, there are people who still say 2025, and I can see that potentially. But my big gripe with 2025 is not that like I would have to wait longer or whatever. Like I don't mind waiting longer. My thing is the Nintendo Switch is it's old. It's freaking old. It's like a 2015 Tegra X1 thing. If that, like, it's already really old today. Like, imagine, like you
2025.
Yeah,
dude,
like
the Switch is nearing 7 years since it came out.
Exactly.
It was using 2-year-old tech when it came out.
Yeah,
so the tech is nearing like 9 years old.
And
close to 10.
I'm not one to be like, oh, Nintendo is like the weakest hardware or whatever, but like, of course, we're just talking about Monolithsoft, Zelda, Xenoblade, all that. They're really pushing the hardware to its limits. But
yeah, if anything, I would have even more faith in Nintendo because look at what they're doing on near decade-old technology.
Yeah, but at the same time, like, a lot of these games take such a long time to make, and that's also because they're bottlenecked by the old hardware. So like new hardware needs to come fast, and like a lot of people are saying, I want this game on Switch and this game on Switch. I want Tales of Arise and Persona 3 Reload and Metaphor.
I want to see Nintendo games on Switch too.
Yeah, exactly. Like the thing is, with all these third-party games, first of all, like these third-party games, like the Miracle ports, like Doom Eternal and Nier Automata, and even like games made specifically for the Switch, SMT5, these games take a long time because they're being made on the Switch, because they need to accommodate to the Switch hardware, the Switch specs, all that. Like, look at Nier Automata on PC and PlayStation 5 versus on the Switch. It's still like a Miracle port on the Switch, but it's a significant, like, they really needed to like go in there and like make that game like run on the Switch smoothly.
I think there's something to what you're saying.
Yeah.
So I've been thinking recently, and I feel like Switch 2 is going to be a easier environment to develop for, considering Universal Nintendo talked about the specs recently, and he basically compiled some stuff from like Nate DeHate, other reliable sources. It's looking pretty beefy. It's looking like it's going to be like 6 to 8 times more powerful than the Switch, and with all that power, you don't have to worry as much about like doing technical wizardry to make the game run at above 10 FPS on Switch 2.
Exactly.
So, yeah, they can focus more on the game and the gameplay and innovating in that sense.
Yeah, for like new third-party games, they might be day and date, like Monster Hunter or Visions of Mana, and all these games will probably be day and date, and that's like amazing because that hasn't happened with Nintendo, even on the Switch. Like, Switch had really good third-party support, but it was a lot of the things weren't even day one. Like, things would come much later. Like, Doom Eternal was it was a miracle that it came out in the same year that it did on other platforms, and like Nier Automata came much later, and some third-party games like Persona, like that was just because Atlas was stupid and lazy, but that's besides the point. But I think developing third-party games on the Switch 2 is like, it's a must. Like, otherwise third-party developers are going to be dropping like flies on Switch. They're not going to support the Switch because they won't be able to bring their games over to the Switch. Like, Tales of Arise is a big one. That game would have been amazing on the Switch, and a lot of people say I want to play it on the Switch, but I'm like, it's not feasible. Like, Bamco can't spend that much time and energy and resources to make a Switch port when they would much rather make a Switch 2 version, which will run better, look better, and be easier to develop for them. Like, it just makes more sense. Like, waiting till 2025 is going to put Nintendo behind, it's going to put the third-party developers behind. It's just not a good look and good idea. So yeah.
Yeah, and I think even Nintendo's own teams, there's a chance that the next Zelda game takes less time than Tears of the Kingdom took, because they don't have to, polish up on it for a year to make it, like, not freeze and crash and blow up your Switch.
Like, what we heard from Aonuma is 1 year of Tears of the Kingdom's dev time was entirely optimization, just making sure the ARM abilities worked. Yeah. But yeah, like, it's, I think, for me, the biggest, like, crux in all of this is Metroid Prime 4, because is it going to be a cross-gen? Is it going to be a Switch 2 exclusive? Because that's the game I'm dying to play. And I've been hearing other people put their opinion out on this, and like, it's going to be tough if it is a Switch 2 only game, because I think it really needs that Switch audience base, the Switch 1 audience base. But if it is a Switch 2 like cross-gen game, I think it'll still like give retro studios the ability to like showcase what this like console is known for. So like,
I think there's two ways they could go. Yeah. So if Metroid Prime 4 comes out this year, it's certainly going to come out on Switch. But if it comes out in 2025, I think Switch 2 is for sure coming out this year. Probably late summer, around September, somewhere around there. But if it comes out in 2025, Metroid Prime 4, and assuming Switch 2 comes out this year, they could be like, hey, Switch 2's been out a while. buy Metroid Prime 4 only on Switch 2, and
Yeah.
I think that would be a bad look for Metroid, because you wouldn't be able to get all those sales that you would if it was cross-gen.
It has the audience base of Switch 1, plus they've been like, in all their investor briefings and all that, they've been saying Switch 1, or like just Nintendo Switch. And like, of course, they can't say anything else. They can't like take it off of their release calendar. They can't like say, oh, it's not coming to Switch 1 anymore or anything like that. But like, it would just kind of suck, especially since it was announced in the first year that the Switch came out. But,
yeah.
No, so and I have to say this is always something, probably I have no doubt they mill this over for a long time internally, especially for cross-gen absolutely has to be a thing for opening titles usually. I mean, look, that's how it's been for a few years now. Look, obviously, again, Breath of the Wild with appearing in the Wii U into Nintendo Switch, but it also has to be a title that is strong enough and competent enough that, let's say, the previous gen sales aren't too great. Is it going to be strong enough for someone to warrant, on top of purchasing a brand new console, to purchase the opening game alongside with it? Like, of course they're going to have to pick a game. Is it going to be strong enough to do that? My argument here is thus: there are 130 some odd million Nintendo Switch owners. There's only going to be
nearing 140 after the holiday season, likely. I think it's going to pass PS2 at some point.
There's only going to be a couple million Switch 2 sales at the very start, because, you know, production, the brand new start of a console, limited supplies as more and more get produced, and you know that's how it works every single console, you know. So Zelda obviously has that mass appeal, and the Switch itself inherently has that appeal, which is why I'm glad to see that there's projections by consultancy firms that the Switch 2 is just an iteration rather than a revolution, as I've been reading, which is what I love to see. I don't think it needs to reinvent the wheel at all.
If it ain't broke, don't fix it, you know?
Exactly. But we're going to have something that can hold them into the transitionary period. And we don't know what that is yet. We have no clue what's the next big title. We knew about Breath of the Wild before Switch 2 was announced. Or before the Switch 2. Before the baseline Nintendo Switch was announced, you know? And then it cycled into being the Switch opener. We don't have an idea of what that could be this year.
That's also because of the different climate with Nintendo being really desperate to show off anything and like just anything at all, because they were in dire straits with the Wii U.
Answers to that question.
And
and I think both of them involve 3D Mario. I think 3D Mario is going to be their day one. But if they do 3D Mario and a more like core title, like a Metroid Prime 4 or like a Monolithsoft new IP or something like that, and I think it could be a smart move. Because you know, I'm going to be playing both Mario and Metroid, but not everyone would be playing both Mario and Metroid.
Exactly.
You know? Yeah,
most people would be playing Mario, or I think even Mario Kart, if they have a Mario Kart, like new Mario Kart launch title. That's like I think that will boost their sales, get people out to the stores to get the system, get the games, but to keep us Nintendo fans, like us core fans, excited, I think if Prime 4 is there, if there's a Monolithsoft game there, like Xenoblade X or the new IP or something like that, I think that's a nice balance. But also, I think of this, like, Switch 2 hypothetically would come out, like, I don't know, September, like, July, August, September, maybe around then. Maybe not everything.
Sometime in the summer.
Yeah, so it's summer, fall-ish time around then.
So,
but, like, real quick, I want to say this, but, like, if it comes out then, maybe not everything has to come out at the launch. Maybe it's just, like, 3D Mario Kart, and this what's that? Prime 4. Then maybe a couple months later we get like a Star Fox game. Maybe a couple months later we get a Xenoblade X Definitive Edition. A couple months later we get like something new or something else, ARMS 2 or Ring Fit 2 or something like that. So I think they'll like, when they have that big blowout event, we'll see all these games, and I think they'll just be staggered around the release. So yeah. What were you gonna say?
So, yeah, I'm going to give you my full timeline for this year.
Yeah.
My full predicted timeline for this year, and a lot of it is going to be based on rumors that we've seen are beginning to prove true, but at the same time I'm going to still throw in my own 2 cents here and there.
Yeah.
So we're in January, the February Direct is right around the corner. For the last 3 years, February Directs, proven bangers, 40 minutes long. We're going to start to see the official closeout for the Switch.
Yeah.
I expect a few new titles. I expect them to again bring up more info on Paper Mario and Princess Peach Showtime, a few things we know about, some NSO love. You know, we just had the Golden Sun love, but I still expect there's a bit more NSO for the Switch coming forward.
Metroid Zero Mission.
Oh yeah, please give us Zero Mission. That would be amazing.
And then at the tail end of the February Direct, they close out with maybe a 30-second, a minute-long teaser, Switch 2, with maybe with maybe their opener, because it's expected Switch will be Switch 2 reveal by the tail end of Q1. That leaves us up to March. Now, Nintendo President Furukawa has denied it, but there's things going on otherwise that seem to state, at the very least, if that's wrong, by April.
The reason I don't agree with that is because what I can see is I can see the Direct happening, and then I can see Switch 2 reveal happening on its own in March or later even in February, because
I'm going to lead right into that. I'm leading right into that.
No, because even a teaser, because they don't even talk about hardware in Directs. Because
they won't.
Yeah?
They won't.
Oh, so what would the teaser be at the end?
I imagine just a visual. At most, a visual of just like physical appearance, like a quick slide.
I think it would be more like a tune in on this date to see the reveal.
No, exactly. A quick slide in of the visual appearance of the Switch 2, fade to black. Please look forward to a mini Direct at this date, because you know we always have a mini Direct late March, early April, somewhere along those lines. Usually it's the partner showcases or the indie minis, but I expect they would dedicate it specifically to Switch 2, a 20 to 30 minute talk on here's what it is, here's what it does, let's sell it to you. We'll have a June Direct that is going to officially close out the Nintendo Switch, the very last of the reveals, discuss a few cross-gen items, and then tease in the initial opening lineups for Switch 2 for us to be excited about. Because by June, you know, that's 2 quarters out of the way, and we predict a Q3 release for Switch, an early Q3 release for Switch 2. So by June we have to know a few more titles, in my opinion. We have to know a few more things, in my opinion, no doubt. Proven rumors so far are indicating that we'll have Switch 2 on our shelves September. Which, you know, align. It would work perfectly because Switch is out. Maybe they'll push back ever so slightly on a September Direct, but a September Direct lining up with Switch's reveal, then showing up. Here's even more stuff going on, and then it's just gonna roll on in. Look at what's coming out. Holiday, along with what's coming out with the holiday season. Get ready, get your Switch 2. It's gonna start popping. It's gonna pop. It's gonna go.
Do you think we're going to see something similar to what the Switch had, where we get the revealed trailer and a couple months later we're gonna get a Switch 2 presentation?
I wouldn't be surprised if we get a Switch 2 demonstration a month to 2 months after the initial reveal for the console.
Yeah, I think regardless, as soon as they reveal Switch 2, it's going to be coming out like 4 months later or 3 months later. It's going to be revealed.
Regardless of all speculation, right now we are climbing. Nintendo is climbing a hill, and we don't know how big that hill is, but Lord knows that like when we get up there, we're gonna just roll on down, and I don't expect that Steam is going to kick down for a long time. I really don't.
Yeah, because like you said, we've been having very consistent like release schedules with the Switch Life, and I think they're gonna really transition over to Switch 2 and keep that going. And we won't be ever in a Nintendo drought ever again. Like, not that we were. I guess the last time that really happened was in 2020 with the pandemic, but that's just understandable. Every company was in a drought. But I will say, I think I can see an announcement happening in March, and like I firmly believe that I don't see them talking about or mentioning or doing anything about Switch 2 in a direct, because directs are always 99% of the time only about the games. Like, whenever they hype up the directs, whenever they market the directs, they're always like, tune in for Nintendo Switch games, or even for the Wii U. Like, there was no like announcement for any 3DS models or Wii U upgrades or anything like that in the directs. The directs are always about the games. And I think the last hardware reveal that they had in a presentation with games was the E3 press conferences, and specifically the E3 conference in 2011. Ever since that, I think, or from what I remember, the hardware reveals and the showcases and the trailers have been like separate like trailers and reveals that they have outside of the directs. So that's what I think personally. But I think I agree with you in the sense that with this February direct, we will get an idea of like what's happening with Nintendo in terms of like our like Switch 1 releases dying down, our Switch 1 releases still like picking up, like how is this going to transition over to the next console and stuff.
We're already in a die down. That's the thing. We've been in a die down, because if you look at the last two directs, there's a few prominent IPs, but they're not mainline IPs.
It's a lot of remakes and remasters.
Tears of the Kingdom was the last mainline IP.
Or Mario Wonder, I guess.
Yes, you could argue that, but I wonder what the budget for Mario Wonder is, as opposed. I wonder what the budget for Mario Wonder is, as opposed to the budget and ideas and time it took to make, for example, Mario Odyssey.
Exactly. Yeah.
That's not to deny how wonderful Mario Wonder is, but
it was a smaller scale game for sure.
Yeah, exactly.
And then we also have like the ports and remasters.
Here's the thing with Mario Wonder and a lot of these games. So Mario Wonder, amazing game, probably my favorite 2D platformer. However, it was a low risk, high reward. That game was always going to do well, and it did do well. And you see a lot of the games that have coming out this year, a lot of games that people want, that are going to do well, that don't require a lot of resources. This is exactly how the 3DS ended off. The games are going to do well, but they're not super high effort. Even the one new game, Princess Peach Showtime, that seems like it has a budget similar to like a Yoshi game.
Luigi's Mansion 3.
Yeah, and then even like the ports and remasters, like Luigi's Mansion 2, Mario RPG, Mario 1000 Year Door, Another Code. I feel like there's more, and then there's also the rumored genealogy of the Holy War remake, which is like rumored to have been completed for the past like God knows how long, ever since like Three Houses came out almost, because it was supposed to come out like before Engage, like if you see in like the code names and stuff. But yeah, I think we're like slowly transitioning over to like the Switch 2, and I do want to wrap up here real quick, but I do want to talk about hardware specs just really quick in the last like 10ish minutes. I think my biggest hope with hardware is that we get more RAM, we get more storage. That's the most important thing. We need to be able to store the games on the Switch. I want the load times to be quicker. I want just the capabilities of things happening on screen to be more in terms of like graphical fidelity and like just more like things happening in real time. Like RAM and storage will help out with that a lot. DLSS is basically a shoe-in at this point. It's been in every single leak and rumor that has been credible so far. I think DLSS is a shoe-in. With what some credible Nate the Hate people have been saying is that even ray reconstruction, ray tracing, some form of ray tracing will be there as well. Some form of RTX, though not as much as on like a NVIDIA graphics card on PC, or not something like a PS5
but apparently
game.
more advanced than PS5 ray tracing.
Yeah, that's what I'm very interested to see. How is the ray tracing gonna look like on Switch 2?
It's pretty simple. AMD ray tracing is just not very good compared to NVIDIA ray tracing. So
I'm very excited to see all that. My big thing is like there's some leaks going on about like leaked hardware specs and stuff. I would be very happy to be wrong about this, but I personally do not see Nintendo using a 120Hz screen on the Switch 2. If I'm wrong, I will be absolutely blown away.
Badly wrong.
Yeah, it's just very uncharacteristic of Nintendo to go above and beyond in terms of specs like that.
They won't.
Yeah.
There's no way. I would fully expect. I would fully expect.
They're not going for 120 FPS.
Yeah.
No, they're not. I would fully expect they switch to, at the very least, some of the tech they employ in their OLED models. We're going to see DLSS. We're going to see ray tracing. We're going to see, hopefully, in 5G support internal, because
nice.
online has been suffering and it is stagnating, and it is sad to see.
Yeah, we need better online, especially with Monster Hunter. Monster Hunter Wilds needs really good online.
And then again, the consultancy firm by Dr. Serkan Toto, the one I was referencing a few minutes ago, the one that believes it's an iteration rather than a revolution, they feel confident we can expect it to be $400. Now, that's going to account for some technology upgrades. It's going to account for inflation. It's going to account for purchasing of new metals, especially because we're in a still continuous metal shortage, supply, especially for consoles. So $400, super in my opinion, it's a super adaptable price. It is, it's completely what I expected, to be completely honest with you. And I'm glad to see it at that rate, because that shows that there is a level of investment above the Nintendo Switch that they're like, okay, we need a better baseline. So that I'm happy to see that, and I look forward to seeing what they're gonna
here's the thing,
what they're gonna reveal to us.
Nintendo Switch, they were in a situation where they hadn't had a established relationship with NVIDIA yet. They just bought their Tegra X1 off the shelf. Now this Tegra T239 that's rumored for the Switch 2, this is going to be a little bit more of a customized chip. The Switch 2 will essentially get more mileage, more efficiency. The rumor from Universal Nintendo says that it's going to be developed on a 4nm process, I think, which makes the electricity more efficient for battery life, so they could have more power in the system. That's why they'd be developing it with that process. So it seems like there's potential there.
Very, very exciting stuff for this year and next year, obviously, when Switch 2 is in our hands. But yeah, I think we're gonna wrap it up here. Thank you guys so much for being on the first episode of the EXP podcast. of 2024. It's been a lot of fun. Thank you guys so much for being a part of it. Both Samuel Talks About Games and Yggdrasil, their channels are linked in the description below, with some of their most recent videos also linked in the description below. Also their social medias, their Twitters and stuff. Yggdrasil, you wanna do a quick outro and tease what you're working on real quick?
No, of course. Well, first off, thank you for having me. I always really do enjoy being here. I truly mean that. I'm ecstatic every time I'm on the podcast.
Yeah, it's always fun to have you on and chat.
I always love to do collabs. As for me, I think I mentioned it the last time I was on the podcast, or the last time I spoke with you, but I finished moving. I'm in a new home. Setup is finally done, which has really been a big cause of the slog with my content for the last few months. But now that we're set up, I'm in a much better place. I have my full utility back with me, so I'm ready to start giving content some love. I'm still avidly working on a Sea of Stars.
I'm very excited for that one.
Sea of Stars video, and I think I'm gonna make it a lot more special than honestly what YouTube is gonna credit me with. But I don't care. I'm gonna have fun with it. So
I'm very excited for that Sea of Stars review. Yeah. Sammy, you wanna tease anything you're working on and plug your channel real quick before we close out?
Yeah. So I make videos just talking about my thoughts on feelings on general topics in gaming, mostly Nintendo, but sometimes other things. I'm thinking about doing more video essay style content, not quite like 2-hour videos, but just going into details with specific games. Like, I want to make a video on Horizon Zero Dawn, and where I think it stumbles and why I think it's the avatar of video games in some ways.
Exciting.
Stuff like that.
Yeah. And yeah, definitely when it comes to Switch 2 news and rumors and speculation, Samuel Talks About Games is your channel to go to for that. But yeah, thank you both so much for joining in on this. It's been a lot of fun, and we had a lot to talk about today, and it's gonna be really fun listening over to this later tonight or whenever I get a chance to edit it. But yeah, thank you guys so much. And to everyone listening this far in, thank you so much. Remember to like, comment, subscribe, and be on the lookout for more content like this. And yes, check out Samuel and Yggdrasil's content down below. This is Nishquick, Sammy, Yggdrasil signing off. Have a great day. Go play some great games today. Like something on the Switch before the Switch 2 comes out, like Xenoblade or Zelda. I'll see you guys in the next one. Later.